I've had sessions on toddlers that were, their lungs were failing. They were on oxygen tubes. And, it's beautiful. I cry sometimes, but I read the reviews and I see the child recovered. It's like a light switch. All his vitals came back to normal, stuff like that. And I just say, thank you, God. Yeah. Make sure you pray and just say thank you to God, because he's the one doing this, and I'm just here to show you that he's real. That's it.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Let's Be Frank with your host, Molly Skye Brown. Today, I have on with me Steve Noack. I've known Steve for a couple of years now online through Facebook media. We became in alignment and fell into each other's energy waves through spirituality. We're not sure the exact rabbit hole we fell down to find one another, but Steve is awesome in being a light worker. He does spiritual work in the field of working with angels. And do you do past life stuff too?
If it comes up in a session, I will do it, but it's not something I really focus on. It's more or less whatever is going to be delivered during that session to get you to where you want to be.
Sure, perfect. So you do Reiki, and you do a form of Reiki called Angelic Reiki, is that right?
Yes, I do. Yep.
Very cool. Very cool. So we're going to talk a bit about that. Will you tell me a little bit about what your sessions look like, what it's like to work with you? Like, what do your clients come to you needing? How do they come to you? And what do your sessions kind of look like? What is Angel Reiki?
Well, it's a deeper penetrating form of energy healing that I developed through my experience with my near death. But I was led to that to not only offer healing physically, emotionally, but also connect them with their higher self so they can carry on that relationship with Source, so they can pursue their purpose and really have their heart song and prayers heard and reflected back to them and pull that manifestation into their life.
That's so beautiful. Do you end up working with a lot of guys?
Believe it or not, it's probably like 60-40.
60-40 girl to guy?
60-40 female, more female.
But that's still 40% guys. That's way more guys than I get to work with. I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's more than I thought it would be. Most of them that come to me really tell me they don't have anybody to talk to.
Right.
So
right.
The male
light worker is so rare and necessary and important and needed. And a lot of the masculine energy, I don't think really feels comfortable coming over to the feminine side all that much for help. So I love that you have stepped into your purpose and are there for a lot of your brothers. I love seeing the beautiful reviews and testimonies and testimonials that I see posting of you helping a lot of men find their emotions and work through a lot of their traumas. I'm sure as a guy growing up, you are aware you're not supposed to have any emotions.
Oh yeah, and as soon as when you drift into that space and it's around certain people who have that conditioning, it brings out that conditioning. So now you don't feel comfortable displaying these emotions, so you're going to stuff them down.
Right. You're dealing with a lot of programming instead of getting the help that you really, really need. So I love that you're doing that. So let's talk a little bit then on how you got on that path. So you had a near-death experience at 4, right?
Yeah. I was driving a big wheel. It was like a little plastic tricycle, basically.
I remember those.
Yeah. And I remember my mother and brother were across the street and we were supposed to go to the mall. So I came out of the driveway, and here came a car, and there were cars parked, so she didn't see me. And she collided with me. I went under the car. The big big wheel went under the back tire, which actually stopped me because that's where I stopped.
Wow.
And basically, I just remember waking up in a room, but I was looking down. I remember opening my eyes. I'm looking down, and I see white clothes. They weren't pure white, but they were a little off white. But it was a different white. It was hard to explain. And then I
I
could
know
see.
the white you talk about. It's the color Jesus is always wearing. It's not bleach,
And
because they didn't have bleach back then.
yeah, and I could see hair, and I looked up, and this, whoever it was, had no face. There was just light, and it was brighter than the sun. Now you would think you'd want to, but it made me want to lean in, which I did. And I asked them what happened. They told me to put my head down, everything would be okay. And as I glanced off in the distance, I could see like blue, translucent, just structures, images, people, stuff. And I believe I was seeing that divine template, that original structure that was laid to build upon.
Beautiful.
But
at 4, and I'm sure none of that made any sense.
Well, it didn't sink in. I knew something had happened, but it wasn't until my awakening and until things started to shake up in 2008 where I realized I had this memory inside me, and it was stronger than if I remembered I locked the door in the house today or tied my shoe. It was deeper than that it was almost a part of me. So, and I figured out, like, okay, I'm going to work for this ascension and hopefully step out of a little bit of the human aspect and not bear so much weight in this realm. I figured that out later. But
I love that. I love that. So it was like a prelude to what was going to come later.
Yeah, I believe it left an imprint or something.
One of my traumas that I had when I was very, very little, I had almost a near-death experience in the event as well. And I remember going to another realm during the experience. And I remember talking to angels there, and I didn't remember that until much, much later in my life also. So it was really cool to remember that and put those pieces together and then feel that that's been with me my whole life. And now I'm doing so much of my soul purpose work. It's been really beautiful to see that it's coming full circle, and that everything is leading up. Everything that I experienced has led to this, and I feel like you're seeing that or know that also.
Yeah, it's like you make these puzzle pieces along the way and years ago, and then you take that piece now. You reach into time and you take that and you apply it to your new tapestry, if you will.
Right, exactly. It becomes your new truth, your new understanding, and makes so much sense. And yeah, I love that. So tell me a little bit more about, so you had the near-death experience and then went about your life, and then years and years later had a rude spiritual awakening, because they're usually pretty rude.
Oh yeah, I was in surgery, and I was going to have elbow surgery, and I got real panicky, and I started to get real sweaty, and they hadn't given me any drugs yet or anything. I had just gotten into this waiting room on a gurney.
Okay.
And so I wanted to take out the IV, like they gave me the first IV, which was like fluid or something. No anesthesia yet or anything. So I wanted to take everything out, and I wanted to sit up. And then all of a sudden I felt this, and it almost had mass, but it was a calm, and it just started at the bottom and it went all the way up. And I heard somebody say, and it was me, but it wasn't me. Like I could recognize the two differences. Just lay down, you'll be okay. And I did. And then those following weeks, I felt like I had this intense nuclear reactor feeling in my stomach.
Oh, neat.
And until I could dial it and the emotions and what I felt from working on clients, because now I work on clients, and when I use my hands, I can feel it in my center. whatever they're feeling, whatever they're experiencing, I will feel. And I figured out
Fascinating.
to use that as a tool.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the empath ability. It's so cool to be able to feel. So when I'm giving my husband a massage, he's like, how do you know exactly what to massage me? I'm like, I can feel it in my body. And my friend I was talking to before, I made the same comparison. I said, I hate to compare, Reiki to a Ouija board, but it's almost like when you have the oracle and it's kind of pulling you and guiding you. The empath system is very similar the same way. When you do the Reiki, you kind of just are pulled to the areas or the knowings. And it's such a neat, beautiful event that takes place with so much space for faith and magic to occur. And it's like nothing else to do this Reiki work. And I'm such a big advocate of this Reiki work, because when I went and did an intense Reiki session a couple of years ago, I mean, that's what initiated the whole Jesus thing. And it was such a profound initiation for some incredible healing that was not happening with Western medicine for me at all.
Yeah.
So
I was totally turned off.
Yeah. I needed that new available way to manifest. And I'm so grateful that it did. So when I talk to people who do Reiki, I love talking about it because it's so multifaceted. And I don't think people really understand too much about it or anything about it whatsoever. And then you can get additional modalities from the angels themselves when you're really, really connected, like what you've achieved. You have your own variation of a Reiki that you've developed on your own, which I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Well, I try to, let's say they've helped me. They've helped me put in people's hands the understanding of science behind it. So what I'll do is I'll look up what happens when two opposing, electric currents meet. What happens when this happens? What happens when this happens? And they help me understand that they are the same thing as this. It's just people aren't putting them together. They're just, they're different frequencies they're tuning into.
Yeah.
So that helps me to explain it to people and have it be more received on a level it's usually not received on. Some people think it's mojo or whatever.
I was just going to say, I love that you said that, because I mean, one of the things Jesus was teaching me when he first showed up, and I was acknowledging and going with that, I thought he was there. And it wasn't just my imagination, much like when you said you were going into surgery and you heard a voice of your own, but you knew it wasn't, that it was more than what it was. And that's what started happening with Jesus. And then so in 2015, he gave me the Flip Your Vibe modality. And the reason he was explaining that to me was he kept telling me I was receiving a neutral frequency, and I was receiving it and processing it in the negative, and it was not serving me. And he was trying to say to me that most of us do this, that there's a vibrational frequency and it has two polar sides. So if I was reading the frequency and misreading it as anxiety, that the flip of anxiety would be excitement, that they feel the same, one's positive, one's negative. And we tend to read and misuse the frequency when we could be using the positive of the frequency. We tend to use the negative, and then we're manifesting from a negative, or healing from a negative, or living from a negative. And that's the experience that will project out into our entire reality. So I love that you said that about misreading vibrations and getting on the correct one. Because that's
it's like you're going to hit this point where the currents meet, and you're going to go up or you're going to go down, and you're going to make a choice.
And it's a choice. And awareness is going to help you make the better choice. And that's the whole concept of the Flip Your Vibe technique, is just if you can identify whatever emotional state you're in, you'll know if it's negative or positive. And then you figure out what the exact opposite is, and then, figure out how to jump over to that. So you and I are doing variations of a practice of jumping to the highest frequency, the highest, goodest feeling frequency, as opposed to even being neutral, because and maybe we can discuss this a bit, but why do people want to be neutral? Is the goal to always be neutral and remain neutral, or to become in the positive?
I don't know. See, what I'm
Uh,
following now is, for me, is right now the goal is ascension and just defragmenting all of the creations from
yeah.
essentially this large screen or image that has all this stuff caught up in it. And it's
Mhm.
just so we can ascend and evolve and survive. And I guess that's the stream I'm running on now,
Yeah, that's
is just to unite people with that cleansing portion and that purge and purification so they can carry on in a higher aspect of themselves.
right, right. Yeah, me too. I mean, the only reason I had that question is I wanted to make sure I was directing people in the right way if there was some
Mm-hmm.
actual meaning behind, because I know it was, you want to be neutral about things, you want to be neutral about things, but always, do I want to be neutral
Mm-hmm.
until I'm positive? Isn't the goal to be in the positive? So yeah, that I was just curious what your feelings were on that, because
I think it's also to push how far you want to push into that negative and how much of a reflection you're able to process back in a healthy way too.
oh yeah,
You know, like
oh
how
yeah,
much push do I want to give this?
oh yeah,
And for
totally.
me, it's brought an awareness of myself and how I process emotions from like frequency to frequency to frequency. It's like taking 2 days to peel an orange, but that's what it feels like sometimes. It's
It
like,
is. I know
okay, I'm
years
feeling
later,
my
I'm
little.
like, didn't we do this already? And then they're like, oh, there's layers upon layers upon
Hmm.
layers upon layers. Yeah. And I was talking with another guest about this too, the lotus flower and the onion thing. And you can't, it's like going into a doctor and they're like, oh, you need surgery or whatever the diagnosis is, and thinking, oh, I saw the doctor today, therefore I'm healed. And it's like,
Hmm.
no, it's layers and it's work, and it might be lifetime of work. I know there's a
Hmm.
huge misconception that we go to a healer, we work with a healer, and everything's going to be fixed in and out in one session. And if that were the case, you'd be crazy, because you would enter a level of psychosis you could not handle if you were healed completely in one session, because you wouldn't be
Hmm.
the same person at all after that session, and you'd
How are
have
you going to process anything without
right,
depth? You
right,
know.
right, right. You'd have an incredible identity crisis, and we don't want to
Hmm.
initiate that because those are painful.
Hmm.
You have that
Yep.
on your own one way or another.
Hmm. They'll be calling me to remove it after.
No, exactly. Yeah, it's a slow process and a profound process. And that's why I love so much about the energy healing versus, the chemical healing, or Western medicine healing as the only way to heal, or is it even a way to heal? Because I went through 20 years of antidepressants, and it never healed anything. It never healed.
So much wasted money on these
And
doctors, and
time,
and
so
they
much
get
wasted
rich
time.
and rich, and then they're like, oh, the healer, he's not supposed to charge anything. You're
Yes, yeah,
paying doctors, you're paying athletes, you're
yeah.
paying. I just don't get it.
I know.
These are the honest people who actually want to help you.
Right, exactly. And there's so much red tape all around that, and I can't wait to cut through it all. So one of the people that I'm interviewing also is a money coach, and one of the things she says is, get down off of your cross and go make some fucking money. And Jesus is like, yes, I didn't come to say be poor. I came poor so that
Yeah.
all were included. If he came rich, we'd think he was just talking to
Hmm.
rich people. And he came to say, I'm teaching you how to fish, not I'm teaching you how to be poor and be cool with it.
Hmm.
I know there's a lot of projection of, if you have gifts, which everyone does, and if I take the time to hone it, just as anyone could be a doctor, anyone could be a psychiatrist, anyone can be a
Hmm.
healer, anyone can do this work. We need to be paid for it. There's got to be an exchange of
Yeah.
energy. Yeah, otherwise it just doesn't work. There's nothing holding you accountable to receive what I'm trying to give you if there's no exchange, usually a financial exchange, because it holds you accountable to either doing the work or receiving the work, if it's like
Hmm.
mindset kind of work. If it's actual
Hmm.
physical work you got to go through, the monetary exchange and investment in yourself holds you accountable to complete the work
Hmm.
you're
Yeah.
saying you want to do. And then if it's
It's
just mindset work or something like that, that it's just an energetic thing, the money helps you actually receive it deeper, on a deeper cellular level,
hmm
because
that's what he told me too. He's like, they don't want to let this go. They
yeah,
got this piece of them, and they just don't want to let it go. It's not
yeah,
so much about the money
yeah.
as that part of them that they're holding above their healing.
Yes.
you know?
I can't tell you how much healing, and I'm sure you're the same way, I've given away for free that hasn't been
Oh,
received
yeah.
because they think free equals garbage.
Hmm.
So you can't tell me free doesn't equal garbage and that I should pay or shouldn't pay when there's just a lot of money programming going
Oh,
on.
yeah.
I
And then
don't want to
he's telling me, okay, they got this habit, they got this habit, they got that habit. They're putting all these things in the way of their healing
right.
first.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. And we have to heal our money stories too. And by doing that, it's with spending and investing money back into yourself. And investing in yourself doesn't mean going out and buying a Slurpee for yourself or wasting money on stupid bullshit stuff. But investing back into your health is just going to release the chains and shackles of any programming and restriction you have, even around the financial stuff. You'll see it starts flowing back into you because you're understanding the energy of money. When you understand the vibration of healing, you understand everything has a vibration, including money. And
That's been a tough one for me. That's why I need to do more of your videos and watch more of your programs, because my mother never had that. I never
yeah,
saw it anywhere really
yeah,
repeated to me early on. So
yeah.
I'm just learning it now in my 40s. I like to say I'm finally growing up.
And I love helping people with that, because if I had gone just from my mother's programming, I probably would have a lot of that issue myself with
Hmm.
ever believing I could ever have money. But thankfully, my father's side of the family, my grandfather was an entrepreneur and a self-made multimillionaire, and we didn't inherit any of that.
Hmm.
We got cut out of the will by my lovely uncles long, long ago and had all of that ripped away from us when my grandfather died. But him able to achieve that, and then being dead now, he's one of my guides, helped me to be able to believe that I could also. But that's
Hmm.
rare that that's able to occur. If I didn't have it in my lineage that my dad was from Hollywood and had a huge lifestyle lineage that I came from, I probably would have a very hard time believing I could ever create something myself.
Hmm.
And the law of relativity states whatever someone else can do, you can do
Hmm.
regardless. And that's what Jesus was trying to prove too with walking on water. He wasn't trying to show off. He was trying to show us of what we're capable of, and by law of
Hmm.
relativity, anything
Trying
he
to,
can do, we can do, right?
yeah, here's this perfect image. Attain to this.
The
Connect to
money is a
this.
huge part of it that Jesus wants to be able to have light workers understand that you are allowed to make money. You're encouraged to make money. God needs us to have money. God wants to give us money, but we got to learn how to receive it too. And I have my own money programming too. So
Hmm.
it's a workout, and I appreciate it though, because I remember Jesus saying, don't be a prophet for profit, but you should be able to be a prophet and, be secure and it's my full-time job. I'm working
Hmm.
for God. So God's
Yeah.
paying me. And that's the same as you too.
I, and that's what I try to explain to some people. Have you even asked your guides? Have you asked God? Have you asked anyone with divine authority that's higher than
Right.
you or I as people
Right.
on this planet? Because
Right.
that's who told me when I was ready to start doing it.
Right.
So if you're
Exactly.
saying you're above God, then I don't know what to tell you.
Right, exactly. Exactly. And I love that God has been the one to tell me. So I had to reconnect with God because I thought God was a sociopath. I thought that he murdered his children. I grew up Catholic, so there was a lot
Hmm.
of programming there. And I didn't trust him. I thought he was a sociopath. But God really does want to give us a lot because he wants us to do a lot. And
Hmm.
I am saying, just because of the religious programming, it's easier to say, but I believe God is like, spaghetti monster of knowledge. It's just a giant energy of infinite knowledge proving itself through an experiment of all of us being it and collecting that data, proving whatever hypotheses they're running.
Yep.
Whatever
I feel
experiments
like
they're
at
running.
times I feel like I'm in a computer program. I really do.
Sometimes it's really obvious, actually, I think. I'm like,
Yeah.
come on, this is so obvious it's a weird experiment.
Yeah.
But
I'm like, did that just happen? Like at certain times, and little glitches here and there.
the glitches are fun though, because then it helps with me with the magic, with dialing in the magic, where Jesus will be like, put
It
yourself in
teaches you how to
sandbox mode.
use. Yeah.
Yeah, put yourself in sandbox mode, use some cheat codes, try to play with a lot of magic. And yeah, the receiving was really hard for me. Also, so I know that's a big thing with the collective and the light workers to learn to receive. Also, I was going to say, I learned something to help me receive from God. I'm trying to remember what the hell it was. To be in alignment to receive with God. Let me see if it comes back around to me. It percolated a second ago and then I forgot what it was. Oh, I remember now what I was going to say about the money thing. Tell God you're working for God. That's what light worker, that's the trick that light workers need to do, is that we're working for God. We're not working for people. We don't, God pays us.
Yeah.
So if we can be in that mentality, we can always be in the mentality of receiving.
Yeah, you're sort of taking that structural of a program and you're sort of inserting that into
Right.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about your awakening. You said in 2009?
It was 2008, and then I had dated this girl. I was really young. It was like 10 years before this. So we met up again, and we had my daughter, my second daughter. And during that time, it was that polarity experience, that deep emotional um, upheaval. And I was going through hot flashes. I was seeing things. Like, what had happened was I went to the store and I went to standing in line, paid a gas. This kid steps out of line. He grabs a Reese's peanut butter cup, looks at his dad, says, "Can I have this?" Well, then he does it again, does it the same way. The cashier rings the same guy he just rang out again. And I walked to my car and I said, "I'm losing my mind." And I turned on the radio, and there was a contest going on before I went into place. They're taking it's ringing, the phone's ringing. Okay, radio contest, whatever. I go in the gas station, I come out, the phone's still ringing, and then they take the phone call. And it was almost like things were really shifting on such a deep level that it was making ripples in a way.
And what did that look like?
Spaces.
Yeah, deja vu.
I thought I was going to go to the 7th floor. No, I literally lived it, walked through it, and then all of a sudden I'm standing in the same spot, and then I do it again. And
weird.
My third eye couldn't tell the difference at that time, because I had not used the tools. I had not developed my gifts. I had not spent time to connect. So to me, it was just like psychosis.
Yeah, I can imagine. And that was your pull to kind of go into that more?
Yeah, then I started learning things that I didn't know. Not learning, but I already knew them somehow, and then I would look it up, confirm it. Yeah, and a lot of it was like energy and physics and this and that. And I'm like, I'm saying all this to people, they're thinking I'm crazy, by the way. Eventually, I figured out, until I had that real fruit in my hand to show them, they weren't going to see it, because they're in that material world.
Yeah.
I can talk all I want until I do it. But it was a long road. It was, 10 years almost, more.
And when did you feel like you were kind of on the other side of that?
I would say probably a year ago.
Yeah.
Once I went through some really crazy, what people would call twin flame experiences, but it's just emotional polarity and codependency.
Yeah, I can be kind of confused.
Oh yeah, I went through 2 of those, and it was full on psychic quantum entanglement. Like, I'm experiencing emotions, my body is reacting to this other person, images, everything psychic. But that was deep enough to actually help me to look at myself and what I didn't need moving forward. But without those 2 experiences, I don't think I would have got that deep into my consciousness to really get to those roots,
Right. I know I have a lot of experiences that I'm like, God, I wish that hadn't happened, but I literally wouldn't be who I am, where I am, and have the profound clarity if I hadn't experienced some gut-wrenching things with some people that I thought, we're like a twin flame kind of thing. Tell me if you've kind of gotten this information as well too, that we have twin flame options at this time.
You mean time-wise in the time we're in now?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that was like a couple weeks ago, I think. Week or two. It was just like a slight ping. I mean, that's a hard. It's the best way I can explain it. Because when I get information, it's like an imprint.
Yeah, me
Um,
too.
yeah, it was like a slight ping, and I kind of knew that there were things going on in that area right now. Yeah.
Yeah. I started getting some developments on the whole twin flame thing, like a twin flame expansion pack. And it's been incredibly cool, insightful. I appreciate it. So what I was getting was that there are multiple twin flame options at this time because
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of conscious light workers here. And a lot of us are remembering past lives. That means we've remembered past lives with certain party members
Mm-hmm.
that maybe we could have an opportunity to invoke a timeline and an empire and do all of that stuff with. But if they're not willing to show up and do the work,
Mm-hmm.
you will just be endlessly frustrated, even if you're feeling there's a huge connection. So there's like this huge like twin flame problem where maybe one party's really, really in tune and the other party is not so awake. And the one party
Mm-hmm.
is like, oh my gosh, I feel like a huge twin flame thing. And it could be a twin flame option, but if the other party never wakes up or shows up, it's not going to go anywhere. So
Mm-hmm.
what I've been getting to tell people, and even for myself, and to show what I did myself also, was when you meet someone that you feel a huge twin flame connection, close your eyes and meditate and see into the future of that relationship and see the Akashic records for the empire that you guys are ultimately going to create together, and make sure you're on the same page to create it. Because
Right.
one of my first twin flames I ever met, I was willing to become more of his world than incorporate our two. So I was willing to
Yep.
sacrifice more of myself to be in alignment with him, but then he wasn't willing to show up at all for me. And
Mm-hmm.
it was like, wow, I'm willing to completely sacrifice myself for someone who's not even meeting me halfway.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not fulfilling whatsoever, even though I could completely feel we had past life history together and even see some of those timeline
Mm-hmm.
blinks and see that history would repeat itself because it didn't end well then either. He didn't meet me halfway then either, and it got me killed. So be careful. Be
Oh boy.
careful. Yeah. Yeah. Back in the day, you could easily get turned in for being a witch. Let's just leave it at that. Burned at a stake. Yeah. So you want to make sure that you're tuning in and seeing some timelines together where you're building an empire where both of you are happy and doing the thing you really want to do. And if it doesn't look good, don't force it. There's almost 8 billion people on the planet. What I've tried to learn is be
Mm-hmm.
choosier, pickier. Don't jump the first person who says, "Oh, I like you." Oh my God, thank God. Trust me, if
And
one
don't
could like you,
don't
I'd be
answer. Yeah, don't answer to that stir of energy, that puppy love feeling, because
Yeah.
you're gonna be. I'll tell you what. I've seen that energy fill my center and leave in 10 minutes,
Right. So it's
and
not
it
trustworthy.
taught me how to really separate my.
Lust.
Yeah, yeah. For lack
Lust
of
is
a
a
better word.
thing and it's a natural thing, but don't confuse it with love.
Right,
Make
and
sure you understand lust is lust. And same with me and anyone else too. Lust is lust and love is love, and they are not the same.
but it's like you start to feel this rising, and I'm like, no, you don't belong there. Whatever you are, Kundalini, whatever you call it, you don't belong there. Whatever you want to call it. I said, I've seen you before. I've gone down that road.
Right.
Sure, it destroyed certain things. I needed it to, so I could piece
Right.
things together. But right now, I don't choose that option, and
Yeah.
that was key for me, recognizing that I had a choice not to answer to that pull.
Good. Good.
And some of the things in the relationships that really helped me was to recognize that whatever I admired about this person, she was a shaman or she was this or that, whatever she was doing that I could really look at and admire was what I was missing in myself.
I was just going to say, yeah,
Mhm.
that would probably be the indicator. Whatever you're doing is something I wanted to be doing. And that's what I loved so much when I met my husband. He was doing things that I was very excited about and wanted to do also and play in
Mhm.
his world. So that was a huge indicator to me that we would be in alignment, that I wouldn't be sacrificing myself to be in his world, that our worlds were very similar and we would have a lot of fun together. And that I wouldn't have to lose myself completely in the process, because that's can be a big part of the problem and the journey.
Because you do. It's like bubbles of hundreds of yous, and then there's a bubble with him in the middle, you in the middle, and there's hundreds of hims, and you're sort of merging. And how many of yous are you going to lose? And how many are you be comfortable with creating with this person, you know?
Right. I want to say also real quick to the viewers and listeners, if you're in a wrong twin flame relationship, know that there's no wrong. Everything is learning. You're just learning. You're not doing anything wrong. You're not in the wrong place. You're never in the wrong place. It's always learning and giving you choices to choose something different if it feels wrong, for lack of a better word. If it feels out of alignment, know that something in alignment could be available, and it's just your environment, your alignment, and your energy telling you that you are not comfortable with all of this, and something better could be available in better alignment. But you got to be the risk taker to go find that and say, I'm worthy of that, and have the balls to go do it. There's 8 billion people out there, but there's no mistakes. I mean, you had your other relationships, you learned so much from them, you got beautiful beings out of them, you know. So, and you learned so much about yourself, and
now I can have that gratitude that I couldn't have before, because I had gone through that learning, and you know, spent the time to get to know myself instead of find all these external sources of distraction. Okay, this emotion's coming up, let me go do this. This emotion's coming up, let me go do this. You know,
I think a lot of us are very scared to find ourselves at all, and we lose ourselves in other people, and then we resent those people because we need to have a relationship with ourselves.
It does second. So I had 2 of these relationships, right? The second one was the trippiest thing ever, because the things that were wounds and trauma for me that came out in the first relationship, in the second, were that way for the other person. So now the things that I had done that I could perceive now as I could have made better choices, those were the things that were now being done to me. And I was like, okay, so now I get to feel what I was doing in this other relationship to this person. Now I'm really getting a lesson.
Can I tell you, my dad went through the exact same thing. So my dad was like undiagnosed BPD is what we'd call it, like a borderline rage going on all the time in him, because of a lot of family dynamics that really hurt him growing up at a young age. And like I said, his brothers cut him out of his father's will. So there was a lot of animosity and angst, all of that brewing underneath him at all times. So he would get into fits, you know, the saying, the hair that breaks the camel's back. The hair is never the thing. It's the root is the problem, and then the hair is just the thing that makes it all come falling down. But so he would get really angry, yell, slam doors, storm off, and act in certain ways that were just so inappropriate to my mom, and she really did not know how to handle anything like that, or come up against that. She was a very, very calm person, and spiritual and logical and psychological, and my dad was very much angry with God and angry with a lot of stuff, very traumatized with his programming. And then when my parents got divorced, it was so funny, because he ended up, the woman that he married after my mother, she would slam doors and storm off and cause these huge scenes, to the point where I remember being in front of my father and witnessing her doing that, to the point where he was then laughing, because he was like, remember when I used to do that shit?
Yeah, he's like, dang, I'm looking at myself. Yeah.
So you will get exactly what you need to self-correct, autocorrect, heal, in the next person, and the next person, and the next person. And, you know, and that's the twin flame journey as well. So while those relationships didn't pan out altogether, they were probably still twin flame journey segments that serve their
for
purpose.
me, it's whatever happened during this energetic shift, and these currents, these forces that push these emotions up and through, and you meet just those 2 right pieces, and they fit and they can play off each other.
Yeah.
And then that also enabled me to, you know, push into deliverance and people that called me for help with things like entities or things that they couldn't recognize what it really was.
Yeah.
You know, going through those relationships really, it sharpened my tools. Let's say that.
Oh, same. Absolutely same. Same. It's all been a blessing. You know, I look back on all of it and sometimes I'm like, God, I went through so much and blah, pity party, pity party. But now I've gotten to the point where I'm like, thank you for all of the bullshit too,
Mm-hmm.
because it's all been a learning experience of how to navigate away from bullshit, get
Yeah.
out of bullshit, teach other people how to get out of bullshit, recognize the bullshit. And I'm thankful for all of it. And the twin flame experience, I mean, even if it doesn't work out in, like, don't deny, oh, she wasn't a twin flame. She
Mm-hmm.
probably was, just not the long-term option that's best available. But we're going to meet a lot of twin flames that are going to teach a lot of lessons through us and with us and
Mm-hmm.
to us, and to keep motivating us to keep going further and further and further with it. But I loved that with the twin flame journey, there's a huge misconception that your twin flame partner is never going to trigger you. Everything's going to be perfect, lovey-dovey, and he's going to complete you and make you whole. And it's like, first of all, you're already perfect, but completing and making you whole can be painful as fuck.
Yeah, true. Very
And
true.
that's going to be his job. So for my twin flame experience with my husband, he had to trigger me to heal my sexual trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not really fun.
No, because he wants to approach that subject, and you don't want to approach it. And he wants to approach it, or
Well,
whatever
it can't remain
dynamic is
hidden.
there
We're
that night.
married.
Yeah,
We
exactly.
have to have
So
intimacy and
it
children.
sort of forces you to, yeah.
Right, right, yeah.
It's a beautiful, beautiful healing, I think, an
Right,
opportunity that we get to be aware to that type of situation,
right. We look
even
at it
if
at
we
the
don't know it
highest
at the time.
perspective level.
Hmm.
Yeah, perfect. Well, okay, so tell me a little bit more about when people work with you. What does it look like? What does a Reiki session look like? How do you do, like, do you do a consultation and an intake to kind of get a rough
Well,
diagnosis?
it
What's it
depends.
like to work with you, and how do you work with the Steve Noack or Steve Noack? I always want to put a V in there. It's Steve Noack.
That's okay. Everybody calls me Novak. No V though. We were born in an oak tree, so it's no act, but it came from oak. I don't know. Figure that out.
You were born in
But
an oak tree?
apparently, our family came from some Irish oak tree and some
So you're a
under.
magical leprechaun, is
I
what you're
think
telling
so.
me. I buy
Yeah. Yeah.
it.
Mom's last name is Bailey. So.
Perfect. There we
Yeah.
go. Yeah, I'm
But
Irish too, Molly.
are you?
Irish and Scottish.
I think that gives us this sort of twisted, light, airy sense of humor.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can always say we're magical leprechauns if they don't believe in divinity.
Exactly. Yeah. They might believe in leprechauns. Poor angels. Who knows?
Tell me, how does someone work with you? How would someone come to you? What would be their symptoms? What would be going on with them? Why would
I've
someone reach out to you?
I've seen a range of everything from just your standard. I have aches and pains. I have fatigue. Um, to I don't sleep well. My marriage is falling apart.
Yeah.
Um,
Which all of this goes
I
back to emotions that need to be
yeah, and it
cleared.
need to be cleared and processed.
Yeah.
And you can't clear and process laptop if you haven't done the work and the maintenance
Right.
on it. You need
Right.
some of that maintenance. Sometimes you need a little boost. And I don't know, luckily or not, whatever happened to me when I was 4 allows me to give people most of the time that boost, but that depends on their willingness to also put their emotions into it, because God will know the measure that you want to lean into your own healing with,
Right.
you know.
Right.
But
That's so
it'll
beautiful. I love
range.
that you said that.
Hmm. It'll range from even to toddlers that were, you know, their lungs were failing.
Oh,
They were on oxygen tubes. Um, and, you know, it's beautiful. You know, I cry sometimes, but I
me
read the
too.
reviews and I see the child recovered. It's like a light switch. All his vitals came back to normal, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I just say, thank you, God.
Yeah.
Make sure you pray and just say thank you to God,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
He's the one doing this, and I'm just here to show you that he's real, and that's
Right.
it.
Right.
And
Oh, I
show
love how
you
you
that.
said all that. That's so perfect. That's so beautiful. Because it's so true. I want to make
Mhm.
sure our audience understands anyone can do this work. The reason you and I know we can do it is because we've had certain situations that have forced us to literally see God in the face with near-death experiences, especially at young ages. So I don't know if it's a near-death experience that I had or not at very young age, but I would say, I mean, my therapist says it's obviously how I learned to disassociate and go into another realm, which is the same as a near-death experience in
Mhm.
essence. So
Yeah,
when you
because you're
were
pulling
4,
this. You're like inverting this bubble inside your consciousness,
right,
sort of pulling it through.
right. So when you had that happen at around 4, you were validated that there was way more beyond what you were
Mhm.
seeing and knowing as just a human being, that there was way more beyond what the human beings were even telling you that you had now seen for yourself. And I
Yeah.
witnessed similar thing. I'm guessing at around 18 months old, I had a hip surgery. I was born with congenital hip dysplasia, and they didn't diagnose it right away. So it wasn't until I started walking that they noticed my hips were really, really freaking off. And I
Hmm.
had to have my first surgery at 18 months old, and I stopped talking at that time because the pain was so bad I couldn't even communicate it. So I had a surgery at 18 months old. They put me in a body cast, and one of the pins got infected. And
Oh.
it was so painful, and the swelling could not advance because of the cast constricting the area, that I just learned to disassociate from the pain and go into
Hmm.
another realm, which is where I picked up, an imaginary friend later on when I started to really communicate more. My mom was able to see that there was someone hanging out with me quite a bit. And
Hmm.
that's where I'm pretty sure I picked it up. I was in traction for 6 weeks also at that time. And then I had a second surgery around the same time, and then had to go through so much therapy. But one of the things Jesus told me, and one of the things I'm writing in my book of Frank the Messiah, is the gift of trauma forces you to go inward and get answers. And when you go inward and get answers, you access the kingdom and find where you came from. So
Hmm.
trauma is really a beautiful gift when you can look at it really through the lens of that
Hmm.
but that's how Steve and I recognize that we have this ability to even hone. But
Hmm.
everybody has it. Everybody has it. It's just usually jump started through trauma and near
I
death
mean,
experience.
yeah, these events that are just so traumatic, but you choose not to lock them away. You choose to go in them and find answers
Yeah.
as to not only why they happened, but you know, maybe the ramifications of how they played throughout your life and
Yeah.
relationships and stuff like
And
that.
how to
And you
forgive it.
get, yeah, how to forgive it and let go of that weight that's
Yeah.
binding you in
Yeah.
your life now, no longer binding you to the person that caused it or whatever. It's now
Right.
binding you in every day, you
Right.
know?
Right. And the importance of forgiveness is forgiveness makes things neutral. Talking about
Mhm.
neutrality, that's a good thing to make neutral, because the problem with not being able to forgive is if you hate someone or are mad at someone, you have a huge energetic tie to them with that
Mhm.
emotion.
Yeah.
And now you have a cord to that person, dead or alive, it doesn't matter. And you're sending message energy back and forth to them with that
Mhm.
connection through your intense hate, disdain, anger, whatever it is. It's keeping it alive.
Yeah, okay,
So
let
what
me transfer some biophotons. Here, take that.
right,
You
right, it
know?
doesn't matter if you're sending love or hate to them, you're sending them energy and therefore giving them power and rent free room
Mhm.
in your field. So why forgiveness is powerful and necessary, and why it's so triggering for people think, and I used to too, forgiveness means that I think what happened was okay, and that's
Mhm.
not what it means at all. Forgive means I'm cutting this connection.
Yeah, we cut at it, and I'm not gonna let you take my future from me too,
Yeah.
and my dreams.
Yeah, I'm not going to
You know
have,
what I
you're
mean?
not going to have my anger or my love. You're not going to
No.
have anything from me, is what forgiveness does. It cuts that cord.
And some of the other cases that I work on are these, um, they turn out to be what people would classify as an entity.
Right.
But what I figured out is it's emotions in reverse. It's like
Yeah.
playing a record in reverse.
Yeah.
So I go in there and whatever, it's intuitive for me. So whatever movements I use, and I could do this distance or in person,
Mm-hmm.
whatever movements I use, it's sort of unwinding the spiral as I've explained it.
Beautiful. I know other people
It's,
that do kind of like a spiral
mhm.
type work, so I love that.
Yeah, and you're cleaning out all this stuff. And I've had people literally speak in 3 different languages, growling. I mean, you're
Sure.
talking some buried anger and buried stuff
Yeah.
that,
That's
say, if,
manifested.
right, and say if you were to go to church and they'd be like, oh, it's demonic and it's a demon. And, well, no, see, if you look at physics and you look at how things may be happening, and you just take this piece and this piece and this piece, gives you a little bit clearer of a picture of what you're really facing.
Right.
And there's no reason to have fear. Take fear
Right.
out of it, because that's going to fuel these manifestations, you
Right.
know?
Yeah. Well, fear feeds the manifestations. And I love everything that you just said, because these are all the things Jesus has been trying to get me to understand as well. That, because I've asked him, I'm like, are you real? Like, did they make you up? And if they made you up, why? And if they made you up, how am I talking to you? And he's told me that energy is energy. And even if he didn't exist and he was made up, he would exist because we would have manifested him energetically either way with our belief and all the energy we put towards it. So that's how a demon can manifest too, is just
Mm-hmm.
energy. It's
Yep.
a manifestation of our thoughts and energy in another dimension or in another frequency that we're not understanding. We just don't get it. And then it
Now get,
manifests. And they were saying the same thing with hell. Like, hell never existed. We literally
mm-hmm.
created it.
Oh, everything is consciousness. If I have to process this table through my consciousness to perceive it solid, doesn't that stand to like reason everything is consciousness?
Yes.
Like what they explain
Yeah.
in the Bible, heaven is within and everything. I
Right.
really believe the earth and the heaven are representations of that polarity within us. You know
Oh, I
what I mean?
agree. I agree. Yeah. There, not that I think hell is a physical place, because it's a dimension that's bodiless, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just your emotions and your programming end up sending you there accidentally. And that's what I've come to the conclusion of what that is. Um, but living on earth and your experience can feel like heaven or hell with your mindset. So heaven and hell is on earth, meaning if you're always depressed and sad and you want to die all the time and you're just not going to address your trauma, you will probably live on hell on
Mm-hmm.
earth. You'll live in hell on earth. And when you die, you'll see that. And if you process it and choose to be brave and choose to see magic and choose to live differently and choose to go off the beaten path, you'll be able to see the kingdom is also here, and you can live that way too. I mean, God, there's so many different ways to live.
Like an etch-a-sketch, whatever you draw, man, right?
Right.
And they're telling you these people have come throughout time to give you the message of love, love, love,
Yeah.
love, because that's the cleanest vibration.
It
That's the
is.
cleanest, and that's the love without the condition, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I've really clung to Jesus versus anything else, because I really appreciated that he was telling me my creator was pure love. Because I
Mm-hmm.
thought my creator was pure fucking sociopathic. What is happening? I don't want to be
Yeah.
here. I don't want anything to do with this. I don't
And
want
up and
anything to do with something that manifests and sacrifices its kid. But that's not what happened. That's not what they told me. What happened with that is, again, we manifested that. We demanded someone be crucified and killed because we miswrote
oh yeah,
something back in
he
Genesis
told me this.
22.
Yeah, he told me the same thing. He didn't have to die that way.
No, he didn't. But he had to satiate what our books demanded.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty fucked up. Because it completely contradicts a God that wants to kill anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I know.
I mean,
one day we'll use discernment.
it's just that they can't see. Some people can't see the world, and then they can't see Jesus and the message. And
Yeah.
I think when I look at it, it's not for me whether, okay, I need to go find out whether this was real. I need to spend 52 years finding out whether it was real.
Yeah.
To me, the message is a message, and it still had the same results for me. Once I started to follow its true message, and I started to see, okay, we're supposed to heal people. We're supposed to cast these things out.
Right.
We're supposed to do this. And,
Yep.
you know, sadly, I saw, you know, the mockery on the television, and, you know, the guys in the white suit that blow on you and you fall down.
Oh gosh, and a priest kicking a pregnant woman in the belly. Yeah, it's like,
Oh, God.
oh my gosh. Yeah, no, no,
Mm-hmm.
no.
But for me, it was like, okay, that's the message of Jesus. Now, if I could tie that in somehow with a scientific reference, with this reference or that reference, then
Well, can I
maybe I
tell
can
you, I
show a
asked
different
Jesus,
picture.
what was missing back then that people could not get it all
Mm-hmm.
back then? And he said science. Absolutely,
Yep.
science was the missing piece to prove everything, and that it would take about 2,000 years for science to catch up to show quantum enmeshment.
Mm-hmm.
And he could not explain quantum enmeshment 2,000 years ago. So that was, and that's why a second coming was required.
And what really helped me separate, well, 2008, let me start. In 2008, I didn't believe in God. Okay,
Yeah.
even though I had this experience when I was young and I could remember very little of it.
Yeah.
2008, fast forward, I'm a GameStop store manager. Yes.
Were you atheist at the time?
I wasn't really atheist, but I could take it or leave it. Okay, if there's a God, prove it.
Well,
I blame God for this, blame God for that.
Right. Well, and so that's the funny thing that Archangel Michael keeps telling me, and that I keep loving to say to other people too, because he said it to me repeatedly. I was at the same time almost like a self-proclaimed atheist as well. I was like, I don't believe in anything.
Can prove it to me.
And I was basically saying atheist, and Archangel Michael was like, you're not fucking atheist, you're agnostic. Agnostic means you don't believe in organized religion, but you do believe in everything and that there is more. And atheist means I believe in nothing. And then, so it'd be so funny. And I love what you just said, because you were basically saying the same thing I said was, I'm atheist and then I blame everything on God, which means I'm not atheist.
Right, exactly. I couldn't see it at the time.
There was a way to keep me 100% unaccountable.
Yeah. I just avoided everything. And I was shallow. I couldn't see depth in people because I didn't have the depth in myself. I didn't have the right sight. I didn't have anything at that time. In 2008, it turned around. Yeah. You know.
And what did that look like for you? What happened?
Well, I started to go to every single church I could find.
I went church shopping with Jesus. It was very interesting.
Oh my gosh, some of the doors were locked, so I started crying. I eventually talked to one little old nun, and I told her there was a war going on, and and I said, "How do you not know this? How do you not know what's happening?" And I kind of started to get the vibe that the cops might have been coming. So I was like, okay, she's starting to perceive me as a crazy person.
You'd think you'd be safe in a church.
I mean, literally weeks ago, I was a normal person, went home, played my Xbox, did this, did that. And it was like something landed inside of me. And I had to differentiate between myself and it. And during that adjustment period, it was extreme hot flashes. My assistant manager looked at me and said, "You're totally beat red." He's like, "You want to go home?" And then I would just burst out. Yeah, and I would burst out laughing.
Very warm too. That's fascinating that we have similar symptoms.
I just have these emotions, and I'd burst out laughing. I'd be in a room stacking games, and I'd be like, start crying, start laughing, start giggling. They're like, "What the hell's going on?" So I had to leave my job.
But stuff was coming in for you to process, or was it just reactions?
It was incoming, and I was getting a lot of information. But what had happened when it really clicked, and I looked back, and this was the first moment, was I had an elderly woman trip outside my store, and I went out there, put my hand on her back, and she said, "I'm so warm, I don't feel anything." And I could feel my hands start to, do what it does. And right there was the first time I had ever, I can sort of feel like codes and things just coming into my hand. I could feel it on my hand, my palm.
I know you have tattoos on your hands too. Yeah, I was gonna say. One of them's those are Archangel.
Yeah, they're sigils. I was driving one day, and I'm driving, like this, and all of a sudden I start having a vision, and I see one of the tattoos there, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. And I was led in other research when doing like deliverance and working with entities on using these sigils to effectively just make them weaker. So I had the vision, and I went and got the tattoo. Well, on the very last line of the tattoo, the radio screeches and all the electronics in the place shut off.
Ha! I love it.
So then I started to get another one. They told me exactly where to put them pretty much. The second one, same thing. Radio screeches for very last line, shuts off. And the guy's wife looks at me, and this was my friend. He has this tattoo studio. She puts her hand over her mouth, and she goes, I don't know what just happened. And I see her eyes well up in tears. And they just start pouring, and she ran out the house. And she came back like 5 minutes later. She's like, I don't know what you just did to me. But that was amazing. It was like the weight had been lifted off her when I opened this frequency.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And how do you not do that
somehow.
work?
What do you mean?
How do you not do this work when you see this
right
happening?
Yeah, it's such a part of me now that if I'm not doing it, I have trouble at times identifying myself.
Yeah.
Put it that way.
Yeah. All right. So tell me more about your magic hands.
Well, stuff happens. Like, let's see. Well,
you were saying that woman fell outside of games.
Oh, well, basically I had effectively taken all her pain away. And people eventually came and whatnot. But during my healing sessions, like you were asking earlier, the different types of things you approach. There was one where I had a client. This was probably a couple months ago. He didn't let me know he had something with him, which I believe was extraterrestrial. And I've had experience with them before.
Me too.
So I've learned it, And I had that little ting a couple of days before I worked with him. While I'm working on him, all of a sudden his eyes shut, and then they open, and they're all white. His eyes were rolled back into his head, and he starts breathing real funny. Then I start to feel the energy hit my hand and come up my body, and it's like goosebumps, but it's like, yeah, now I got you, fucker. Now I got you. So, and then you just basically bind them up and take them. And I apologize for the swear, but
no, you're good.
It makes you excited, and you feel this sort of fight where you're just not afraid. You know what I mean?
It's very empowering to learn how to transcend demons, transform them, transmute them.
Oh, I eat them.
Bind them.
I eat them.
Do you? You eat them? I'll have to talk to you about
this is the reference. Yeah. It's sort of like they don't have a choice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Doesn't matter who you are. You already know who I am. You already know I'm here. And
that's similar to my process. Tell me a little bit about your process. If you don't, will you tell me a little bit? Like, how do you eat? What do you do?
It's basically just because of the portal in me, the Christ is strong enough, and I've done enough work to where I can just pull them and just crush them. And I give them an option. I've done this many times. I've given them an option.
Me too.
I'm like, you can go in peace. You have love. You have blah, blah, blah. Once in a while, you'll hear a swear. Or I could just extinguish you altogether.
I pretty much my format as well. And that's what I was told is our right and our ability and our sovereign rights are able to do that. So what I was taught, you're so sweet. You're like me. I give them a choice too. I'm like, you can do this yourself, which they never will.
Yeah.
Or I can do it, which is always what happens. No demon's going to be like, yes, I'm going to go on the straight and narrow.
No.
No. So yeah, so for me, I don't eat them, but I love that. I want to hear more about that. Like, what's the
Well, it's
purpose
just
of that?
basically a reference to transmuting them, to
Yeah.
transforming them,
And
and they
informing
go
their child
through
with your
me.
love.
Yeah, they go through me. They go through me because I followed the message of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I followed the message of binding the Azazel,
Yeah.
hand and foot, who was a representation of myself, that lower self, to move him out of the way,
Mm-hmm.
to bring in that Christed energy.
Mm-hmm.
And that message came before Jesus with the scapegoat to cast off that side and purify. But it's strong enough to where I can either burn them with my hands. I create a quantum link, basically just using my hands around me wherever I am. And just as soon as I start to feel it, that's how I know things are moving.
Very cool. Very cool. I love that.
Sometimes, like with clients, it'll force me to yawn, and I'll keep yawning, and I'll yawn, and I'll
Yes.
yawn.
Yes,
Yeah.
I've noticed that with other healers myself and myself as well. When I yawn, it's usually I'm releasing, processing.
Mm-hmm.
Really
And
good.
I've read that's a way to transmute energy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's a really good sign. Yeah, that's so cool. This has been so much fun. I love talking about all
So
this.
I like to chip away at them, chip away at their ego, because that's what they are. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, what do you got? What can you do? You can't touch me. I'm marked. What are you gonna do?
Right.
Like, I'm working for God. There's
I feel
nothing you
bad for
can
them.
do.
That's what I say too. I'm like, what are you even doing?
Mm-hmm.
You've met
Yeah.
me now. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, not sorry. Yeah, I tell them that they can either put themselves through the vacuum back to source
Mm-hmm.
themselves, or I can do it. And if I do it, I will turn them into a butterfly or a ladybug, and they're usually pretty horrified with that picture.
That's great. Oh, I gotta
I like
use
the whole
that.
eating thing because I could use more power. I'm pretty tired.
Well, see, I feel jacked up afterwards. I'm
Well,
like,
that's
am
what
I
I mean.
supposed to be doing this?
Maybe I'll start doing that instead of
Yeah.
letting them be butterflies, because I think that's even too nice of me still.
Yeah. Do you want to get burnt? I can just burn you away, and I can literally hear them speak back to me. And sometimes they'll say they're sorry. Sometimes they'll say this or thank you, because it was an image that was caught in the screen that wasn't all dark necessarily, as opposed to something that's just pure
Well,
dark.
yeah. So I have a demon dog, and it is not pure darkness because animals usually aren't. And definitely usually is pure darkness. But I remember it came around, and I remember because they were trying to teach me some of um, the Solomon seals. Jesus is
Oh
like
yeah, I've used those. Yeah.
light people to have more of the dark,
Yeah.
so that we can use it for good. Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
And I make the same analogy over and over. It's like the Force in Star Wars. Vader
Oh
can
yeah.
use it, Luke can use it. They'd like you to Luke. They like the Lukes to use it a little bit more. Is all I'm
Mm-hmm.
getting at with learning some of these things, because I know people can get really scared. They're like, "Oh, that's all bad," and it's like, no,
Yep.
nothing's all bad. Nothing is all good. Everything's neutral. It's all how you use it. So I was learning some of the Solomon seals, and they were saying, you can train demons to work for you, and I was like, oh my God, that is so crazy. And of course you can. And so Archangel Michael summoned a demon dog and showed me how to crystallize it. He crystallized it.
Now, when you're doing this, are you in meditation?
No, I feel like I'm in active meditation all the time. Like it's a bordering psychosis. I just see it happening all the time. I'm rarely in a meditative state. I feel like I live in a meditative state. It's almost like I'm on a party call.
Yeah.
And I can just always hear them whenever I want to tune in, they're there. Or if I need to tune people out and be like, oh, they need to take precedence, then I do. But yeah, they're pretty much always there. It was very similar to how I had an imaginary friend when I was little, just literally always there. I can tune in at any time and hear it more clearly. But it is like almost the best way to describe it is it's like I'm on an active party line 24/7. So Michael was showing me that I had a demon dog. Oh my God, she was so ugly. She looked like do you remember Ghostbusters, the Zool dog?
Oh yeah.
Whatever the demon dogs looked similar to that. I mean, the same kind of consistency of the leathery skin and looked like extreme mange on demon dog. And then Michael said, I want that you can use them as for protection. And I was like, I don't know how I feel about any of this, but I trust you guys. And then I'm trying to remember the whole ordeal, but it was something like once it got super close to us and we touched it, it popped and turned like a bubble crystalline. Like it turned into the exact flip of itself.
Yeah.
But it was still programmed to be protective of me and be super duper powerful, but now flipped from dark to light.
Yeah, you turned it inside out and brought out the template. Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically what I did. And I named her Daisy. And I'm trying to think why I named her Daisy. But she loves the name Daisy. I'll have to look at my notes why Daisy, because I remember there was a reason and it came to me why Daisy. Mm-hmm. But she sleeps next to my bed and protects me, and she's still there. And I pretend I pet her at night. It's very weird.
Mm-hmm.
I thank
her. I've never turned them into crystal, but definitely.
Never seen that before. That was something new that they showed me. And I don't know that you'd do that with anything other than a demon dog.
Yeah. When I got to doing like not the summoning, I never really did a spell, but it was just like they're telling me, okay, just call them up. I'm like, all right, do I really want to call up a demonic prince? Do I really want to call up this and that? Because I had the Book of Solomon. They're like, you don't need all those tools, just do it. And I did, and it enabled me to face that aspect, that governor, whoever governed those emotions was dark. It enabled me to face that part of myself. And then I was like, dude, I own you. What is this?
Yeah. And it was able for me to show to myself I'm incorruptible.
Yeah.
That I can have such extreme powers, or, you know, like the Solomon stuff is incredible power. And it used to scare me that it was innately only bad and could corrupt me. Mm-hmm. But power is power, and if you're incorruptible, which is what I try to be, because I understand karmic repercussions, I'd rather stop incarnating than be, you know, the ruler of Earth.
Mm-hmm. That's what also led me to start looking into like the 7 archangels, the 7 main chakras, the 7 demonic princes. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, here you're talking about a system.
Right, a flipped inverse. Right.
Yeah. It's upper and lower, and in the middle you have the Christ, the portal, the vacuum.
Right. Oh my God, tell me more about that. Riff on
it. I don't know. I figured it out. I figured out that the lampstands were the chakras, the 7 stars in the hands of the 7 angels. They're coming down during this time of ascension, during this time of change. And the end of the age within you is going to be different. The timing is going to be different for everybody. It doesn't mean the world's going to be wiped off the map.
Right.
You know, it's an inner reflection, and that's what the book was supposed to be.
Same thing. People have been asking me, what is Jesus saying about this pandemic? And I'm like, a fucking ton. I could not even tell you in 4 sentences. Like, mm-hmm. First of all, Jesus told me there's 8 billion timelines right now because there's almost 8 billion people. So therefore, there's 8 billion different experiences happening. So mm-hmm. 8 billion people are going to experience the plague differently. Collectively, we need to look back on some of our resources and see what should we expect at this time. You know, like Book of Revelation says we should have about 7 years of pestilence right about now.
Yeah. The other night I'm laying in bed and I'm like, dude, it feels like a revolving door, and I don't know which world I'm going to step out into. It literally felt like that.
And it should, because every day is a new day to step into a completely new realm, mm-hmm. universe, dimension, version of Earth. And most people are living not knowing that at all. They think they're stuck in the same version of themselves every second. And it's like, no, our entire body literally, like, first of all, completely regenerates in like 7 years. Mm-hmm. So we're completely new tissue in 7 years. You don't think I can be a new person every day?
And it's fascinating when people have these images of you and you're not exactly who you are to this person, and all these different you
have a different perception of you, a different projection.
A different you, yeah.
Yeah, I know, it's fascinating. It's fascinating.
I've had sessions on toddlers that were, you know, their lungs were failing. They were on oxygen tubes. And it's beautiful. I cry sometimes, but I
Me
read the
too.
reviews and I see the child recovered. It's like a light switch. All his vitals came back to normal, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I just say, thank you, God.
Yeah.
Make sure you pray and just say thank you to God,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
he's the one doing this. And I'm just here to show you that he's real.
It's fascinating. Steve, listen, I could freaking talk to you forever.
Sounds good.
This has been so much fun. I think we've got everything that we need. So let me do a little bit of an out. We covered some near-death experience. We talked about being a light worker, angels, Reiki, awakening. The only other topic I wanted to kind of touch on that we danced around, but we never really directly talked about, was just your soul purpose and figuring out what your purpose is. I think a lot of people have a hard time figuring out what their purpose is at all. Coming to Earth, you have a purpose. You agreed to come here for some sort of reason, and finding your purpose, what I have discovered, is usually through your traumas and your passions. So I don't know if that's the same for you. It seems to be, because your traumas have come full circle to now doing this beautiful work.
It's pretty much the same for me, and I've learned that doing this work, I was able to unite others with that passion for themselves, whatever it is, that you didn't need to be limited to, I need to be this, or I need to be this, or I need to be this, that it was just bringing forth that divine assistance to bring into creation that purpose-filled life that you want, that you crave and your soul thirsts for and struggles for when you don't have it and you're not serving something that really pushes through from the inside and calls you.
Yeah, and part of the satisfaction that comes from doing the work is the feedback, the thanks that you get, because it can be thankless at times, and you just show up and you're like, I don't even know why I'm saying these words. I don't even know why I'm doing this. I don't know why I'm being called with this theme. But then you do it, and then someone comes out of the woodwork and is like, I needed to hear exactly that. And then you see it's so beyond you. And then to see it received, it's so satisfying, because it can feel so scary to go on this path and crazy, but it's so satisfying when
that keeps you going.
When you step into service and someone thanks you for that service and you don't even know what the hell you're doing, is one of the most beautiful things and encouraging things to keep going on this blind path of faith.
It sure is. The messages and the feedback and the people you help change their lives. And even when you're sleeping, you're working even when you're sleeping, because I get messages. I'll get messages. You showed up in my dream, or I was meditating in the park, and when I closed my eyes, you were there, and you told me this, this, and this, and this. And I said, that wasn't me. It was kind of me that wasn't me.
It was, though. It was
just so you could recognize a point on Earth here.
I bet I could talk to you for, and I'll probably have to have you on the show again.
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome, dude.
Season 2. Have you on again and talk more about doing the work in our dreams. I've done a lot of spiritual work in my sleep. My dad is deceased. He died 13 years ago, but he's still very much alive. I contact him all the time, hear from him all the time, and he's been explaining to me where he's at. He's part of the Federal Galactic, and he's working on a ship there, and I don't know, and I'm still figuring all this out too. It's very bizarre, but they come around quite a bit, the Federal Galactic, and one of the meditations I went on, they were giving me my papers, and so I did a meditation. It was right when Jesus showed up, and I don't even remember what invoked this meditation, but I closed my eyes and like immediately was on this giant ship, and I was going down a corridor, and it seemed like there were all types of different beings there, not all human, and I don't even think the majority were human. And they were escorting me down hurriedly down a corridor. And I remember them saying, she's awake, give her her papers. And they handed me some papers and said, give her her mission papers. And I was like, I don't even know what the hell is happening right now. And this is 2015. And then my dad started chasing me down the corridor and he goes, how are you here right now? How are you even here? And I said, I don't know. And he was chasing us. He was running behind us and he was in a great mood. He wasn't like freaked out or angry or anything. He was just like, how are you here? And I'm like, I don't know how I do this. But I've encountered him 3 or 4 times since he's passed on that ship. And right after he passed was in that white room, that sorting room. I was there with him in my dream. It was so bizarre. Oh, your video cut out. Oh, there it goes.
Yeah, low battery. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, it's fine. We'll wrap up in just 1 second and you can go charge your phone. But it was, I'd like to talk to you more about that.
Oh, yeah, we can go into like, that'd be a whole nother show. Like the mantids that I see that come into session and help me with other people.
Oh, perfect.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, because I opened up about that with my trauma therapist just this past week, and I laid it on her, all the interdimensional stuff, and she looked horrified. And and then and on top of that, I played her a message of someone from Australia who didn't even know who I was, hunted me down with a light language message that was for me that 5 people translated and was like, oh, you keep saying Molly, 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 and some other words too. And they're like, I think this is who you're looking for. And I played all that for her. And I mean, Jesus was like, I think she's going to need her own PTSD therapy. And I was laughing because every time I saw her face, she looked horrified. And I was like, okay.
You just broke that lady's brain.
So I met with her again on Wednesday and she goes, I wanted to tell you that after our appointment and you telling me all about the aliens and the beings, because I'd already told her all about Jesus very openly. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to go for it. And Jesus was like, do it, go for it. She goes, right after your call, I just happened to have a 2-hour call with her own therapist. That's her own mentor. And her therapist goes, a majority of my patients are having her exact same experience.
Wow.
So it was so beautifully validating for her to be like, listen,
yeah,
that sounds crazy as shit. And yet apparently it's happening to a lot of people right now. The exact same. She goes, I'd never even heard the terminology federal galactic. And she was like, oh yes, I'm very familiar with this. And it was so nice to hear that. She's like, I just wanted to.
That's awesome.
That. Yeah. So I'm like, well, yay, we're going to step into some new stuff then as a collective to be able to heal bigger and better this way. So yeah. So after they shoved me, escorted me, they keep trying to correct me, escorted me down the corridor. They then threw me out a door and said, basically, you have a parachute, because I was free falling back to my body, back to Earth, and scared, freaking out, screaming. And they were like, why are you screaming? Like, nothing's really happening. Chill, lady. And I was like, like I do overreact, but just a touch. But yeah, it was, I'd love to talk.
And then we can cover I don't know, dream stuff and how you're sort of walk through these emotional scenarios where you're not going to put yourself in that in your real life,
Yeah.
So you can release these emotions and move forward.
Yes, that's what we're trying to do. We need to move past all of this trauma. This is like the trauma age where it's finally coming to a giant boil. And we're gonna.
That's why all these people are having these crazy dreams where they're going through these scenarios because they have to feel the emotions and release it. Yep. You wake up feeling like panicked. You're like, oh man, I shouldn't have killed that dude last night. Why did I do that? And you're like, oh, it's just a dream. Or robbed the store or whatever. But because you're feeling those emotions and you're releasing them from your consciousness.
Yeah. We are so resistant to feeling our emotions here. And yet that is what we're literally here to do, is feel these emotions. Because Jesus was telling me, when we cross over and we don't have our body to ground us anymore, if we don't heal our emotions, we will just, we'll ricochet through dimensions of timelines of trauma. He says it's much better to process all this shit with our bodies. In the 3D realm with our bodies. It's a lot easier to clear this emotional stuff. So think about it. We think it's so difficult here to feel our emotions. Try feeling your emotions with no body.
Yeah. They told me when they first came, they're like, listen, you agreed to come here. It was a volunteer thing. Yes. We had to learn, and we weren't able to learn where we are, what we need to learn. So we had to come here into this.
Yes, that's the experiment. So. Yes. Yes. The experiment, I keep asking, like, what is the actual wording of the experiment? How long does it how long does it take to remember yourself when Lucy's in charge? Like, what's the name of this experiment so I can write it down? But Steve, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I'm going to go ahead and do the outro on this. And one last thing, how do people work with you? How do they find you? And do you offer a free consultation or?
Anybody can find me at trinityhealing.com.
Yeah, we'll have links all through the all the stuff to this. Yeah.
Search for Trinity Healing. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram. I'm not there too much. I'm easier to reach through Facebook, where you can get my phone number, send me a message or anything like that.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being on Let's Be Frank. And I really appreciate you coming on and talking to me about all of this yummy goodness of spirituality, of near-death experiences, of soul purpose, of angel Reiki. And,
we could talk about so much.
Yeah, and I want to talk to you again. I'll have you on again, and we'll talk about interdimensional healing and more of the sleep stuff and what happens and what we're connected to when we're asleep, and how to also block that out when you need to actually get some deep sleep. Because I've had to tell them before. I'm like, listen, guys.
Yeah. Yep. I've had both. Right. Tell them to block it and then tell them to start it back up.
Right. I know. I'm like, can you put me on this step? I need some calibrations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I think you're wonderful. I love everything that you're doing. It's so beautiful what you're stepping into doing, and the beautiful love that you share in your heart. It's really appreciated.
Thank you.
Jesus.
You too.
I'm sure they all tell you.
You too.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Thanks. I'll see you later.
Bye-bye.